Hello and welcome to Post-Burnout.com interviews. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. My name is Aaron Kavanagh and I'm the website's founder and editor-in-chief. This is our website's podcast where we publish the full interviews from our site's articles and sometimes release exclusive episodes. In this edition of Post-Burnout.com interviews, Matt Peters, the guitarist of the Mancunian post-punk band IST IST, discusses the band's latest record, DAGGER, working with producer Jonathan Cross, being an independent band for over a decade and if that will still be logistically viable given their rise in stature, the members quitting their day jobs to pursue music full-time, the rise of the band during the COVID-19 pandemic, touring Europe, and coming to Ireland for the first time on their current tour. As mentioned in the interview, IST IST are currently on tour and they'll be coming to Ireland at the end of the month. On April 28th, they'll be performing at the Grand Social in Dublin, and then the following day, on April 29th, they'll be performing at the Ulster Sports Club in Belfast. Tickets for both of those shows are available in the description of this episode. Thank you very much and enjoy. Perfect. I was going to start with this. You know, I guess about 2 years ago now, the band has been together for about 10 years. I guess like really didn't start doing things until 2015, but technically 2014 is kind of credited as when the band started. Has it felt that long for you?
A little bit. I mean, I joined in 2018, because the band were a three-piece that we're playing a lot of quite heavy, well, a bit heavier than how we sound now, basically. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we released our first album in 2020, so I think time can sort of warp on you, especially when you and we didn't start touring like properly until after COVID in 2021, 2022. So I think if I was to ask the other three who've been in it for a lot longer than me, and they've also been in bands, other bands together before Istist as well. So I imagine for them it just feels like one sort of long uh journey really. And it all just sort of time has a funny way of not feeling like as long as it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, what's interesting too is that you know, like I talked to a lot of artists who were like doing stuff during COVID, and like you guys were actually active because COVID seems to be kind of a quagmire for people's memory. It seems like I don't know, kind of a memory sink where people don't really realize how long the project's been going on because like they were kind of dormant during COVID. But obviously for Is This, I mean, you guys were working on your first album, Architecture, and I guess like the second album, Art of Lying, because that came out in 21. So I guess would that have been made during COVID as well?
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the weird thing. A lot of people say that Architecture was their lockdown album, but obviously we'd written and recorded it in 2019, and for us, The Art of Lying is very much our lockdown project because we were stuck at home, and then we ended up, sending each other files and stuff like that. Which was a new thing. We'd never like written, not in the room together. So then we sort of learned a new process really, which we've carried on. Like we do send files back and forth and work on stuff remotely. Um, so yeah, I think that's what Art of Lion taught us. And we tried out some new things as well that we probably wouldn't have done if we'd have then gone on to tour the first album and stuff like that. Whereas when we eventually got to play shows, we were essentially touring two albums. Um, which then obviously led into the third one, and then that leads into the fourth, and it
Yeah.
keeps going from there, really.
Well, actually, I think just before the lockdowns happened, am I correct in saying that you guys actually did at the time your largest headliner to date, which was at the Ritz in Manchester?
No, the headline at the Ritz wasn't until we released Protagonist, the third
Oh, sorry.
album. Yeah, so that was on the day that we released that album, which was pretty brutal. But no, I think like just before lockdown, we'd done Sacred Trinity Church in Salford, um, and somewhere in Halifax. I think we'd done two gigs that January in 2020, and that was it. Um, but and then yeah, I mean, yeah, and then coming out of the back of it, we'd actually grown a lot more, and people in Europe had started listening to us, and then we started touring Europe in 2022. Um, so actually, in a weird sort of way, we didn't fare that badly. Mentally, it was a big struggle, and obviously, I think there was a bit of I think that's around the time I think we decided we wanted to do this like professionally. Do you know what I mean? I think because we got a taste for what it might be like if we didn't have to go to jobs and we could write and just be artists. And I think in my head anyway, it was like, oh yeah, this is what it could be like.
Yeah.
And now we're at the time. I mean, obviously without the global pandemic and all of that,
Yeah,
but
which is definitely
now
nice.
yeah, but now we've been doing this as a job for 2 years, and we packed in whatever things we were doing. Me and Joel, the drummer, worked in a music shop. Andy worked at a record label, and Adam worked at a paper mill, recycling. So we've been doing this, as our only source of income for 2 years, which is quite impressive, really. Um, and it does feel like, and I think things are getting better, and the music's getting better because we're able to focus on it a lot more, and got the freedom to do things that we never used to be able to do when we were sort of, you'd go straight back to work. I mean, literally, we got back from a 3 week European tour yesterday, and I would be, going back into working in a music shop or something now. Whereas instead, I'm getting to talk to you and do some interviews and get ready for the next tour that starts next week in UK. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Is it a daunting prospect though, to actually pack up your day-to-day job and actually commit to it? Because as nice as it is, I mean, like I don't know, like to me, speaking pragmatically, I guess I guess it could be quite a nervous prospect. Was there nerves going into it, or was it pretty much like gung ho, like this is the right thing to do?
Yeah, it's terrifying. Um, I don't know actually. I mean, at the time, I was that confident with it, and I knew that um, we talked about it for a long time, and it's like I don't think we would be doing it or taking that leap if we didn't think it was really built on secure foundations. Because we're not signed to a label. All the money that we have is our own money. We don't owe anyone any like advances or anything like that. So actually, compared to a lot of bands, it's not that risky, if that makes sense. I mean, it's still risky because, we've had like, if you get injured, a week before the tour and you can't do the tour, then that's pretty much it. You've got to go back to work. Do you know what I mean? But luckily we've done the tour and the money's, coming in, so you just carry on and it's fine. But so there is that sort of fear, but no, I think the hardest thing was just making that transition from going from like having a retail job or whatever and having a manager to then effectively being your own boss and having just the four of us being equal business partners. That was quite tricky, but we've worked through it, and that takes, it's like any job, it takes about a year to really feel like you've got your head around it. And there's equal parts playing shows as it is, spreadsheets and budgets and planning and all that sort of boring stuff. But we all do that, and we all just crack on, and we have a lot of freedom, which is great.
You mentioned you've been doing the band full time for about 2 years now. Would that have been before or after Light a Bigger Fire?
It was just like as we started recording it. Yeah, so it was pre Light a Bigger Fire, yeah. And that was actually that's kind of where I mean, the lyric, the title comes from a lyric in the song called The Kiss, but I think Light a Bigger Fire just, it sums up that whole period where that's exactly what we were trying to do. We were like, you know what? If we're going to do this full time, we need to do something that's bigger, and we need to do something that is going to just, take us up another level, just to make sure that we can do this. And that was the whole sort of concept behind that album, really.
And one other thing I want to mention before I speak about the new record is you were mentioning, when the band was growing, suddenly you had this popularity in mainland Europe. I know, in particular, you guys are very popular in the Netherlands.
Hmm.
How do you find that? I mean, like I find it very interesting when bands sort of take off unexpectedly in regions they didn't expect. So, when did you kind of like realize, I guess, that you were popular elsewhere?
I think basically the first show that we booked in the Netherlands was on a boat in Rotterdam called V11,
Mhm.
uh, and the person who was booking it at the time was like, we'll book it and we'll see how it goes, and we'll book a couple of other shows or whatever, and we'll see what happens. And I think it sold out in like 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and it was like 150 cap or whatever. Uh, and then we're like, oh, that's weird. There must be over 100 people that love us in the Netherlands. That's cool. And then the promoter got back and said, oh well, we'll book Rowtown in Rotterdam as well for like the week after. And we were just like, oh, I don't know about that. That seems a bit much. That's not going to sell, is it? And that was like 250 cap or whatever. And then that sold out in like 5 minutes. And we were just like, right, okay. I guess I guess that's that then. And then and that was 2022, and we did those shows, and they were amazing. And then we've just gone and sold out the Paradiso in Amsterdam, which was 1,500,
Yeah.
which is absolutely bonkers. And I don't even I know that there's been a lot of radio support. So Kink FM have been a massive supporter of us, and they started playing us during lockdown, and Your Mind became like their sort of they were playing that just like every day almost. And each album they've like supported us, and then this album, I Am the Fear, has been like it's sort of hit that level of single where they've really, really got on board with it, and all the fans over there have really got around it. So I think that's helped. It's been sort of a like not a hit single, but like it's just that it's been a song that they've really got behind, and it's just helped get it out there. But we've toured a lot in the Netherlands, and we've played a lot of like bigger venues because they have those types of bigger venues, and I do think there's something to the landscape of the Netherlands, and the venues they've got out there. Even like 900, 800 capacity venues are amazing venues, and the people that work there are great. And the transport's great, and the setup that they have in that country is great. That just, I think, makes it easier for people, and maybe just the Dutch people. I think they are a bit more like word of mouth, and they have these communities around music that a lot of places have, but it seems like it's just been an easier thing. And I think there's some luck involved as well. It's all of those things mixed together, and we're incredibly lucky to be able to do that.
The other good thing also about the Netherlands is that, as you were kind of mentioned, that every city there has like a venue for you to play, regardless of kind of like what size you're at. But what I love also about the Dutch, I don't know how to do it, but compared to like a lot of the European counterparts, they're really good at preserving those venues. So if you were to look at like I don't know the Paradiso, the Melkweg, or you look at any of the like the ones in Eindhoven or any of these
Oh,
like
like
places.
Vera in Groningen's
Yeah,
amazing.
Fear and
That
Groningen,
was
yeah,
a great
exactly.
place.
All these places have existed for like decades, and they're still going and they're still producing stuff. It seems
Yeah,
very different to what I'm used to, which is like a venue crops up and maybe it lasts like a decade and then it's like a new venue and
yeah,
stuff like that. They're really good at preservation, I think, the Dutch.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you can just tell it's always. I mean, it's been going on a long time. Like, there's even like Joy Division and a lot of
Yeah.
bands and the new wave sort of scene as well. They just went over there and just became quite big quite quickly, and that just helps them sort of. I don't know. It's weird. It's sort of has a knock on effect then, because the money and the support you get from those shows, I think then it sort of tells the rest of the places to be like, this is the sort of thing that could happen in your country as well.
Yeah.
Or all you need to do is turn up. Because on this tour we've sort of done, it's way the on like most tours it ranges from like 150 caps to 1,500. Um, and then the next sort of country down from the Netherlands is like Germany, where we just the last show of the tour in Hamburg that was 400, and that was sold out. And that was quite similar, like for most of the German shows. So that's sort of going, but that's been a lot slower to build. That's like over the last 4 or 5 years. So it does just some places take a lot longer, but um, yeah, the whole tour's been great.
There's an interesting thing you were talking about there about kind of I guess regional differences in the venues you play, and that's something I've noticed too because like it used to be I guess like even like in the 90s or even the 2000s like if you were a 1,500 seat theater band you were playing 1,500 seat theaters across Europe. Now,
Mm.
as you were kind of mentioned there, the venue sizes differ based on like the region. Like let's say even in the UK, like it would generally be 1,000 to 2,000 seat theaters
Mm.
consistently. But obviously, I mean, for you guys, like when you play Manchester, you're playing like Albert Hall in this, or you play places like the Ritz and places like the Academy.
Yeah.
But then like you're not necessarily playing those size venues throughout the UK. Does that make it difficult then for you guys to have like a consistent stage show or consistent presence?
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing because you don't want to you don't want to dupe people and have all your advertising be like you at the Albert Hall or you at the Paradiso, and then they come and see you, even at like I don't know, like a 300 cap in Germany, and it's a more of a, like a punk show, and they'll be disappointed. But I think because of the type of music we do and the way that we play, and maybe just because of the circumstances, we are able to give just as good a show, and we actually enjoy both in the same way. I mean, we don't want to play to like 100 people every night, but well, we wouldn't be able to afford to carry on doing it. But
Sure.
those shows are still really special. And it is just the way it is because we don't have a massive sort of machine around us that's making sure every region is sort of going at the same rate. It's a lot of it is word of mouth and it's targeted advertising that we do ourselves, and the promoters do it. But a lot of it is very just like we're only sort of four guys plus a manager and some other people that are part of our team and all that. But it's like it's all very from the ground up, really. So the result is you do get some smaller shows, but it is what it is. And then the main thing is if you go back and there's another 100 people there, it's like a result. That's a win.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah, because yeah, I think there used to be that kind of consistent trajectory. Like famously, you'd be like, okay, this time we're going on the theater tour, and then next year we'll be like doing the amphitheaters, and then the year after that we'll
Yeah,
be doing
yeah.
the arenas and stuff. I think people know that's not like the reality anymore, but I don't know. I think as long as you can sustain yourself like globally as a
Mm.
headlining act, I think that's really all you want
Yeah,
or need.
totally. But we're constantly trying to level it up as well. Like because with the Paradiso, we got someone in to do lights, um, and we're touring with the front of house and all that sort of thing. Um, because obviously, if we brought a lighting engineer on tour, it was like some venues they just might not have much of a rig to use. Do you know what I mean? So,
Sure, yeah,
but then it's like we want to make sure that we are playing the Paradiso. We're leveling up to the standard that other bands are when they play there. Do you know what I mean? We want our show to be as good as the Interpol show at the
hmm,
Paradiso. Do you know what I mean? Because there's no reason why it shouldn't be. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, no,
I know we're not Interpol, but we're still doing the same venues. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's just because we're playing to like 150 people in Bratislava, on a boat that smells like fish. It doesn't mean that we're not playing, a sold out
sure,
Paradiso. It's like you can't just turn up. It's like we were talking about this on tour, and there's a story about the Arctic Monkeys when they suddenly got massive in like 2006, whatever, and
hmm,
they played. I think it might have been Brixton Academy or like the Hammersmith Apollo or something like that, but the stage was empty and they played for like 40 minutes because that's all they really had. And they had just
yeah.
these tiny little amps on stage. There was no real like lighting rig because they didn't really have anything. I don't even think there was a drum riser or anything like that. That might be an exaggeration, but they
Hmm.
they just weren't obviously they're massive now, obviously. I mean that goes
Sure.
without saying, but it was just one of them where they didn't level up with the size of the venue straight away. And then probably someone had a word and be like, right, come on, lads, we need some lights, we need screens, we need all this sort of thing.
I think actually, yeah, you can see. I think they played Reading that year. I think they headlined Reading that year, Reading and Leeds,
Yeah,
and I think you can see that there with the Arctic Monkey set. If you look at that, I think from 2006, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
where it does seem like yeah, just an unexpected catapult, where that record just like took off, and then like suddenly it's like okay, headline one of the headline the country's
yeah,
biggest
yeah.
festival.
But yeah, you just got to do it, and you just got to keep looking at the next thing. And like for the Albert Hall show, which is the last show on the tour, so we do the two Irish dates, and then we go straight to the Albert Hall.
Yeah,
And we've got someone, I think it's someone who works on the Radiohead crew. He's programmed the light show, and then someone's coming in to sort of run it. So I think I'm really excited to see what he comes up with, really. Um, so yeah, that's going to be a really special show because you got to.
yeah.
I said quite morbidly to Joel, I was like, we've got to pull out all the stops because we might not get to do this again. But I was thinking in my head, like, oh, it could all go off the rails and we might never get the chance. But then Joel was like, in his head, was like, yeah, but next time we might do the Apollo. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Actually, don't think so negatively. Like it could, it could keep growing. So
I think
just enjoy it.
you need optimists and pessimists in your band for a
Yeah,
good center balance, like a yin and yang, you
it's all about
know?
balance. Yeah, and that's actually a bit more like that. Sort of ties into the theme of Dagger a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, that was sort of the duality of the like double-edged blade and the sort of the holding of the blade, but it's sort of pointing back towards the person holding it and all that sort of thing. It's like that was not so much consciously, but I think just since we've sort of thought about it a lot more, I think that's kind of what the album based around a little bit. It's that sort of duality of like you are on tour and you're doing this amazing thing, but it's like it could so easily sort of all fall off the road. Do you know what I mean? And we are artists and we are musicians, but we're also businessmen and financial directors and creative directors and
Yeah.
doing a lot of things behind the scenes that you just have to do as a band. But yeah, I'm really proud of the new album. Fans have really sort of got behind it and all that.
Yeah, so Dagger, as you mentioned, it came out at the beginning of February, so it's almost 2 months old now. I have to ask, like, with this record, how do you find it kind of differs from, I guess, the rest of your discography? Because the one thing that is very apparent, I think, when you listen to your albums like chronologically, is that the music has remained consistent. It sort of has the same, obviously through the instrumentation, it's very
Mm.
it has that continuity, but you do notice a difference in mood and atmosphere, and a lot of that's driven by production, but also, I don't know, just I think a huge aspect that's very important for your band when I'm listening is the space between you. And I noticed you were kind of mentioning doing like the second record, during lockdown, and how that kind of dictates certain things that you wouldn't have done on the first record and so on. So I was wondering, does space atmosphere matter to you in the production as much as the song? So
Yeah, totally. I'd actually argue that that's been ever since I joined the band. That's like the number one thing is taking stuff away and leaving space for things to happen and to breathe a little bit. Um, I think that's actually what we tried to do on this album. It was to get back to that original ethos. And I think that's why the artwork is quite monochrome and quite to the point, because we wanted to just sort of symbolically tie it back to like that the first album. Um, because I think with Light a Bigger Fire, I think we tried to do something that was a little bit more commercial, a little bit brighter sounding, um, which I think really worked, and I'm really proud of that record. But I think we thought it missed a bit of the sort of aggression or the grunt, as we always call it.
yeah,
Um, which when you do go a bit more aggressive, you don't have to sort of layer as many things because you just make something sound great and just let it sort of stand on its own, really. Whether it's make the drums really punchy, make the bass really sort of snarly and aggressive, and then just stick the guitars in around there, and then add any more sort of atmospherics that you might need. And then just let Adam do his thing, because we always sort of joke that we could basically do any kind of music, but as long as he's sort of singing on it, you get that sort of emotion across and you get that sort of like that sort of sound on it, that Adam can do really well. Um, and I'm working with Joe, our producer Joe, we worked with for the first time on Light a Bigger Fire, and we
yeah,
learned a lot of lessons from working with him because he's quite a pop focused like producer. Um, but he's a massive fan of like Nirvana and a lot of the bands and the Pixies and a lot of music that we really love. Um, but he sort of taught us a lot about how to be like economical with our parts, and like if something's going to be there, it really needs to serve a purpose and sort of earn its place in the song. Like don't just have stuff in there for the sake of it. Um, and we spent a long time doing things like pre-production, which we'd never done before, which is essentially like he'll take the demos off us and then either delete stuff or replace stuff or just sort of mix them all up a bit, and try things out for a few weeks before we even really like hit record properly on anything. Um, so we did that again with Dagger, but it was quite a nice meeting in the middle because we also knew a lot more what we wanted it to sound like, and we were quite clear with our sort of decisions. So yeah, I think it was also frustrating because it's always frustrating. It's always a hard process, but the end result's always really good. So yeah, I think that's we've ended up with the best album I think we've done.
Well, I was interested in something you said there. You were talking about, you want to do something that was very different from the last record, yet you enlisted the same producer. I was wondering why did you enlist the same producer if it was something that you wanted to kind of, I wouldn't say diametrically do the opposite, but like, as you mentioned, there is a huge difference there in terms of the mood and atmosphere, and I think Joe, like nails both of them. So yeah, I was wondering, what it was.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, we worked with him and we get along with him really well. So I think that was a big draw. And we knew that this album, we still wanted it to be like upbeat and punchy. Um, it was more just the sort of sonic palette that we used, which we knew that Joe would be on board with as well. I think it was just like on Light a Bigger Fire because it was our first album, being like full time as well, and we wanted it to sort of we trusted him to just do his sort of make it a bit more snappy, I suppose, and just went with it because we'd never really worked with a producer before, so it was a bit of just learning how that actually sort of works and how he works. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think we didn't really consider using anyone else. And again for the next one that we have started writing a little bit, but it's not like it's just ideas, it's sketches, so we don't know how it's going to go. We don't know what the next one's going to really sound like, whether it's going to carry on being sort of more industrial or aggressive, or maybe it'll go more, I don't know, synthy or whatever. But it's sort of that'll dictate whether we use Joe or find someone else. You just got to go with the music. And I think with Dagger, the songs were still really like catchy,
Mhm.
um, which we knew Joe would be great at. It was just like, no, we want the guitars to be like this, or we want the synths to be more distorted and all that. And it was just like working with him, I think, a bit more. Not co-producing, I wouldn't go that far. It was just yeah, definitely not co-producing. Like I think we need someone to sort of be that outside voice, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Um
Yeah, actually, does that dictate having that kind of external voice? Does that kind of dictate the sound of the record in any way, or are you guys still like 100% the pilot?
yeah, I think it just it offers that like unexpected thing because I think if you go in knowing exactly how it's going to sound and how it's going to do, I think you'll end up with quite a boring record. I think
Yeah.
it's in the unexpected that a lot of the magic lies, really. And if that comes in like a spur of the moment improvised thing, or whether it comes after like 2 hours of discussion, because both happen, like, sometimes you'll be just absolutely like agonizing over even just the tempo of the song, or, whether you think it needs another hook or, something like that. Sometimes you can just have endless discussions, but then sometimes you're all just on the same page, all five of you, do you know what I mean? Or whatever. So yeah, I think having that outside influence is really good because actually he's really good at just bringing the best out of you, really. And there's things that like I've always been a really big fan of like Sonic Youth and sort of like shoegaze bands and stuff like that. And Joe like got me and him would just like he'd tune the guitar to like a sort of open tuning and just find like a nice sound like that. And I was like, that's really cool. And we've done it like on the last two albums. It's become quite a sort of a thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was a side of me that I'd never really like brought out in our records before. But he sort of like got it out because we're both into that sort of thing as well. Do you know what I mean? So he sort of enables you. Um, to embrace those things that you know that you love and you want to get into your music, but maybe you wouldn't bring it out yourself. Do you know what I mean? You might keep it more inside. But I think a producer's his job anyway is just to like notice what you're trying to do and just make it really good and really impactful, I think.
Hopefully not to the extremes of like Thurston Moore and Lee Ronaldo, where
No, not no.
every song needs a different guitar to play.
No, no, or like Kevin Shields or something like that, where he's
Yeah, yeah.
literally like, I mean, no, we have got a guitar tech, thankfully, so he does tune my guitars for me. It's only on
Perfect.
"I'm the Fear," I think that's the one song that I have to have a specific tuning for. All the rest is pretty standard, but yeah, luckily we've got someone to help.
And I guess final thing I'll ask about Dagger, before I talk about the tour, you were kind of mentioned like at the beginning you had this kind of like concept of what it was going to be in terms of the sound, in terms of the atmosphere. So I was wondering, is that something you always go into with each record? Do you kind of have a true line to begin with, or do the songs that you guys have written sort of dictate that? And also, you guys are on the road a lot, so do you write on the road, or do you specifically part time away to go, okay, this is our songwriting time, this is our recording time, this is our rehearsal time?
Yeah, I think we let the songs sort of dictate the the theme or the sort of aesthetic of the album because there's just so many songs, and I think Adam especially is constantly writing. Um, and then it goes, there's a bit of a sort of staggered process where he'll work on stuff with Joel, our drummer, and they'll go to the room, just the two of them, and they'll record some drums on one of Adam's songs, and they'll sort of work through stuff. And then me and Adam will just send stuff back and forth, just to sort of catch little ideas. So he'll come up with something, send it to me, and I'll do my bits on it, or I'll start writing something that I think's quite cool, like instrumental, and then I'll send it to him, and he'll put a lyric on it, and then we'll just park it. We won't touch it for a while. We won't sort of because and then Andy's the sort of he's a really good final piece because he needs to just block off time, and because we've been doing so much prep for the album and so much prep for the tour, his head's just really been in that. So he's not even really listened to demos, but we've said, on tour and stuff, he's like, right, I'm ready now. Give me the Dropbox folder and I'll start listening. And then he's a really good like arranger and editor, so he'll just be like, right, get rid of that. That's rubbish. We need to halve that bit. What do you think about that? We need a hook there. That bass needs to be better. That bit needs, it's like cool, right, wicked. Because I think me and Adam can be just quite whatever, like just catch something and then just let it sort of happen. But then you need people to be like, it then goes through the sort of the mill. And then I think what we want to do in May, once we've finished the UK tour and we've got a little bit of time, because we've got quite a lot of festivals and stuff, but in between those, I think we're going to start pick some ones that we really like and just learn them and play them and see how they sound.
Yeah,
Um, and just enjoy it, I think, is the main thing. Because even though we're doing it for a job, you don't want it to feel like it's a job. You got
yeah.
to remember that because there's times when you sort of got your head in your laptop a little bit too much, and you just need to like remember that you need to just write some songs and just enjoy it. So yeah, that's basically the process these days. It's sort of a mix of both things. It's a lot of like demos on laptops, and then we want to get in and play them as a band, really.
And uh, when it comes to, I guess, like we're talking about the, I guess, the sonic continuity between the albums that have come out. And I was reading an old interview you guys did, and at the time you were kind of listening, this was like, I think this might have been during the COVID pandemic, and at the
Mm.
time you were listing your influences as like Radiohead and Interpol,
Hmm.
as well as like the 70s kind of post-punk scene with like Joy Division, New Order, The Stranglers, The Damned.
Yeah.
I was wondering, has the influences on the band kind of grown just in the time of its existence? Like, have you been incorporating new things that you were listening to now that you weren't listening to back then?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say like I mean, if to name names, I'd say like a big one these days is the war on drugs,
Yeah.
and Deftones are a massive influence, which is kind of a weird one because we don't really sound like Deftones, but uh, I think we just love the sound of their records and we love the sort of directness of it. But also like the wash and the sort of sonic landscape they're in and the attitude that they've got. So I'd say in the last sort of 4 years, they've definitely become like a because like every band has got. There's only a few bands that everyone really likes.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah, I
even with
do.
Radiohead, like not everyone in the band loves Radiohead. Not everyone in the band likes jazz. I
Yeah.
love jazz, but I don't think anyone else. I love the Beatles. I don't think anyone else likes the Beatles.
Oh, really? You're the
Um,
only Beatles fan?
yeah, I'm the only Beatles fan. But I'm also the only Liverpool supporter, so
Sure.
um, there
Okay,
is
so it's
that.
a regional conflict.
I
Okay.
think it's a regional conflict. Yeah, I think that you can put it down to that. But it's important, you've got to have. I know, a lot of the stuff I listen to is more like 70s, like singer-songwriter stuff. Like Joni Mitchell and Elton John. Which whether that makes its way into the music, I don't know. But I do play a lot more piano than I used to, and that especially live, I think has changed a bit. But um, yeah, I don't know. It all depends. But yeah, that's a simple answer. Yeah, I think like War on Drugs, Deftones, and stuff like that. And also just going to see bands. Like we all went to see Deftones recently, and we liked some of the things they were doing, like between the songs and stuff. And we're like, yeah, we should do a bit of that and get some ideas for lights and stuff. For like, it's all really important stuff. Oh yeah, that was one thing I'll mention is Adam gave me some really good advice. Was just spend a week listening to something that you'd never listen to or you think you'd absolutely hate. And regularly goes on these sort of journeys, and he'll listen. I think one week he said he just listened to nothing but Justin Bieber, like both new and old, or just
Yeah,
whatever came on.
the whole spectrum of
Yeah,
Bieber songs.
and just go into it and just force yourself to find something useful in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or we'll listen to, I don't know, Dua Lipa, or I think I was listening to King Cudi, Kid Cudi, that's it. And I was
Kid Cudi,
like,
yeah.
there was a couple of songs like, this is well good, like, oh my God, but I would have never like ever listened to it um normally. So it's just like just put yourself in a unexpected sonic world, and you will find stuff that's really good, because I think it's so easy just to keep listening to like the same sort of thing, or and then but then you'll only ever really be pulling from that sort of influence. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
Um,
I think it's very important, like as you were kind of mentioned, to have members that do have distinctive taste. Because if everyone's just pulling from the same pool, it's
yeah,
like it's like a gene pool. There's no diversity.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It's important. So yeah, and I take some sort of sick pleasure in the fact that I don't necessarily listen to like I do love Joy Division, but it's like I don't think any of us really sit down and listen to it, because it's just like it'll be a once every now and then we'll put it on
you have
in
to
the
be in the
van.
right mood,
Yeah, yeah, but
definitely.
we love it. Even with Radiohead are like my favorite band, but I don't listen to them every day.
Yeah,
Because you know I've listened to them like every month for the last 20 years. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
I sort of don't need to, and it's all in there. You know what I mean? Or I don't need to learn how to play another Radiohead song. I feel like I can know quite a lot of them. Maybe I should learn like a Glenn Campbell song or something like that, and see if I can learn something that's unexpected.
Yeah. Well, I think also one thing when you really love an artist and you're kind of like devouring their music as consistently like that, sometimes your criticisms of the music can get because you're just so familiar with it, it kind of becomes part of your DNA that your criticisms of it can kind of become like somewhat subatomic. Like, I don't like the way this vocalist enunciates this one syllable on this song, or I don't like this
Yeah,
one note the guitarist hits on the solo of this song. And sometimes I think it's nice to step back and kind of go like kind of like like discover it as new music after a period of
yeah.
time.
Yeah, or like I think it's important to keep some mystery in it, because like remember like what music sounded like when like before you knew how synthesizers worked, or how chords worked and stuff. Like how did music used to sound when you didn't know how it was made? Do you know what I mean? I'm always trying to think about that, and even like when you listen to pop music, sometimes you're like, I don't fully understand how they've done that, because it's like the most catchy thing I've ever heard in my life, and like how do you actually like, do you just sit down and it just happens, or do you really have to
Yeah.
work at it? And I think it's more the latter. Do you know what I mean? But it's about allowing space for unexpected things to happen. Do you know what I mean? And to do that, I think you need to just sort of push your own, like, expand your own world a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, and one thing actually I will say in favor of TikTok is but using like little samples for whatever the video is, it does kind of highlight little production aspects that I probably wouldn't have picked up on, like listen to just like very subtle things that for some reason like fuels other people's imaginations, while other listeners would just like
Mm.
totally forget it's in there.
Yeah, and I will say some of the songs that get really popular on TikTok are really good, or like there
Yeah,
are artists that you're glad that are getting more attention. Like when Radiohead with Let Down and stuff like that, I was like, it's kind of grim, but at the same time, if more kids are listening to Radiohead, then that's got to be a good thing. You know what I mean?
yeah. You've been very great for your time. I don't want to take too much more. I just had,
Yes, okay.
I guess three final questions. I want to, just clarify this. So, there's a song on this record called "I Remember Everything." Obviously an homage to "I Remember Nothing" from Joy Division. It seems to me like that's kind of probably the closest the band has ever gotten to wearing their influences on their sleeve. Would you say that's fair?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I remember everything is I think one of our favorites on the whole album. And I think it's just a really good and emotionally like charged song, really. Yeah, I don't know. It is pretty. It's a pretty straight up post punk sort of Interpol type song, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, I think we're at that point now where we don't really care about whether it sounds like someone or someone else. I think when you're earlier on in your career and everyone's saying you sound like Joy Division or Editors or whatever, you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
fuck
Piss
off. I'm
off.
trying to
Yeah.
do my own thing.
Yeah.
And then I think after a while, you're just like, yeah, yeah, we do. Well, I mean, we love Joy Division, we love Interpol, so it's like, yeah, I, that's a great. And if you, but and I think you're trying to. I think any artist, honestly, like whether they're massive or not, I do think that a lot of these people are trying to make the music they want to hear.
hmm
So when we write something like "I Remember Everything," and it reminds us a bit like of Interpol, or gives us that feeling of like I think we've gotten pretty close to like writing something that we think is as good as that. And that's quite a I think that's quite a healthy attitude to have rather than just be like, oh well we've ripped off that one. Brilliant, let's move on to the next one to keep people happy. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
we want to achieve just making good music as good as what we consider to be good music. Do you know what I mean? I think that's
Yeah.
the ultimate goal, and I think we've that's one especially that I think we've done really well at, as well as like the bigger hits on the record or whatever, like I'm the Fear or Makes No Difference or whatever. They're like really effective, uh, sort of pop songs, really, or industrial disco. I think as someone described it as, which I really like. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I can picture yeah, like Saturday Night Fever happening in like a warehouse or something with that
Yeah,
description.
exactly. That's yeah. We did actually have after one of the gigs, we did have a bit of a disco, 70s disco session with lots of Bee Gees and that sort of thing. It's great. It's great stuff.
I wanted to ask, finally, just before I plug the tour, I just wanted to ask, you know, like you guys have been doing this independently for, over 10 years now. Is that still something that's viable, given the kind of growth of the band? Is doing things 100% independently still viable? Because like even you were mentioning like doing like the Paradiso show and doing the Albert Hall show and the kind of requirements just of those shows. But if say for example, like in a year or two, like all of the gigs are like that, will it be viable to kind of be able to do it independently?
Probably not. But not for that reason. Actually, I think because the touring side of it, like we can run that fairly well, and we've got a tour manager and all the rest of it now because we're able to afford to have someone to run that. It's more from a logistics with the releasing of the records. I don't know how many more records we can actually get out. Not that we actually ship them physically ourselves, but we do have to do a lot of manual work with a lot of the sort of more personalized editions of the record and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean we're happy to continue doing it as we are. It just depends if we want to grow it a little bit more. Maybe we might need to get someone involved, but even if it'd have to be a good deal, do you know what I mean? And that's the thing. We're in a really nice position where we're not desperate to be signed by anyone, and if someone was to just lend us money, it'd be maybe helpful to be part. It may mostly to be part of the like a bigger PR sort of system, or to get us into some sort. Because it seems like certain parts of the industry seem to be a little bit more closed off than they are to others, because we are, uh, a smaller sort of fish, I suppose, in a very very big pond. So I don't know. We'll see. But I think if we were to do, it would be I don't think it would be like give us 500 grand and hope for the best. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like that'd just stink. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't really want to be in that. But so yeah, I think, I mean, whether we get signed to anyone or whatever, I think we'll try and keep as much of it as independent as possible. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So licensing rather than a 20-year contract.
Yeah, probably.
A 20
Yeah,
album
obviously.
contract.
I don't know. I'll honestly say this. I don't know why anyone would sign like a 6 album deal. Like you'd have to be out
No.
of your mind. Like it sounds amazing, but it's like, no, that's a terrible
Yeah.
idea. Don't do that. Um, why would you do that? Uh, Anyway, if someone was in front of me now and they said, "Oh yeah, I signed a 6 album deal, it was amazing, and now I'm a multi-millionaire," I'd be like, "Cool, brilliant." But what about the thousands of other people that have just been dropped after one? Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
or even worse, like that. Imagine if you did a record and it just never even got released. If it got shelved,
That
I'd be
does
like,
happen a
"Oh
lot.
my
Yeah, people don't
God."
talk about that. Yeah, because like they shelve the records if they can hear like enough singles, and then you still owe them 5 albums. Insane.
Honestly, it'd make me sick. It'd be enough to just make me not want to do it anymore. So, and I think it'd be a real shock for us because we've always done it ourselves and we've never had anyone sign us. So, I think if any discussions like that start coming about, it's just like, no, that's just not going to work. But anyway, we'll see. I've put it on record now anyway, so we've got to commit to it.
You've manifested
But I
it.
didn't, I didn't say yes one way or the other, so that's the main thing.
You're perfect. Yeah, ambiguity. We'll save it at
Hmm.
the end.
Yeah.
And the fun thing I want to wrap with is, as you mentioned, you're starting a tour next week, and it will include 2 dates in Ireland. April
Hmm.
28th at the Grand Social Dublin, 29th Ulster Sports Club Belfast. First time over here, I believe. You
Yeah.
looking forward to it?
Very much so. Yeah, we've been waiting for years to finally come over. So it'd be really nice to finally meet our Irish fans because I know a lot of them have come over here to play to come to shows and stuff. So
Mhm.
I think it'll be great. And obviously me and Joel especially are big Guinness drinkers. So we're very much looking forward to it. And that's always on our rider. And I've got family in Dundalk, which I know is sort of right in the middle.
Yeah,
Um,
it's kind of closer to Belfast. Yep.
yeah, so I think they're coming to the Belfast show. There's about 6 of them. And shout out to Dundalk Garden Centre, which they run, which is brilliant. And I haven't been there since I was about 13, so I don't know if we'll get a chance to stop by, but it'd be nice to see them after a long time. So yeah.
Perfect. And what can people kind of expect from the show? I know this is kind of like one of especially the Belfast show is kind of one of the smaller dates. So yeah, I
Mhm.
was wondering what can kind of people expect from those shows?
Loud, hot, and good.
Yeah, bring earplugs and a
Yeah,
fan,
yeah,
a
earplugs would
portable
be
fan.
beneficial. Yeah, definitely. But we'll play all your favorites.
Perfect. Thanks very much for your time, Matt. Is there anything you'd
Yeah.
like to add before we wrap up? Anything I failed to cover that you'd like to change?
Nothing really. Just keep on rocking in the free world. That's all I'll say.
Perfect. Thanks very much for your time, Matt. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Cheers, Aaron. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too.
See you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're available wherever you get your podcasts, so we hope that you enjoyed and would consider subscribing, giving it a like on YouTube, or a rating anywhere else. We also have some exclusive episodes only available on Spotify, which features interviews with the likes of Kim Deal, Ron Mail of Sparks, Jacob Slater of Wonder Horse, Maria Kelly, Gavin Friday, and many more. So check those out if you're so inclined. Otherwise, thank you for listening and see you next time.